Welcome to Sleek Notes E-commerce Boost podcast, your chance to learn from the e-commerce experts so you can boost your business.
Hello everyone. So in this episode, we're going to focus on something slightly different. We're going to take a B2B angle on landing page optimization. However, if you do run an e-commerce store, fear not, because there are some super interesting examples. For example, design frameworks and pop-up best practices that you can probably apply to your e-commerce too. The interview today is with Oli Gardner, the co-founder of Unbounce, and he has more than 6 years of experience with landing page optimization. And in this interview, you're in for a treat. Let's jump in. Welcome so much on the show. I'm really thrilled you had the time to be here. If you could just start out by presenting yourself, that would be amazing.
Hi, well, thanks for having me on. I'm Oli Gardner, co-founder of Unbounce, based in Vancouver, Canada. And yeah, Unbounce is a landing page and conversion platform, and I'm one of 6 co-founders.
Super cool. And in this episode, we're going to go in depth with what your experience had taught you about landing pages and how to optimize them. And then we're just going to take a B2B angle. So let's just start. Can you just go over the basics of a good landing page for a B2B company?
Absolutely. It kind of begins, if you think, I'll talk about some of the elements on a page, but one of the things you have to think of first is that your landing page's purpose is to deliver on the promise you're making in your advertising or any of your marketing. So if you have an ad, like paid advertising or email, whatever it is, your landing page's job is to immediately confirm that you have what you've promised somewhere else. And you have to maintain that scent through every step. But physically, what does a landing page need? Well, if you think about the immediate above the fold experience, you need to communicate your value proposition. So that'll typically be, you've got a headline, perhaps a subheading, some kind of visual that represents what you have on offer. This is your hero image or video. Then your call to action, whether it's a button to click through or buy, or whether it's a form. Then you need, the content that describes your offer. So there's the features and benefits, that kind of stuff. And then some form of social proof that, helps validate that you are trustworthy and that, you're worth someone's time.
Interesting. So already there on the landing page, it's a good idea to have social proof in your view.
Definitely. But not, it's one of those interesting things. People say sometimes if it's a new business, well, I don't have any social proof yet. No one's used it, or no one's used it and told me about their experience. So you don't want to make it up. That I've seen that. That's a mistake that some people make, is they put fake social proof on there. If they use, for example, a template to get started. I've seen my face with someone else's name and a phony testimonial on landing pages.
Oh, no.
Maybe because they used a template of ours at some point that had my face as a placeholder. It's kind of funny when you see that, but definitely you need that, especially if it's from someone who's an established authority. Then, without that, you have to leverage it if you have it. And one of the things you can do is just ask people, right? Never put social proof on there without permission, but doing outreach is a smart thing. Interview your really good customers and get them, ask them. Actually, one of the important things with social proof is not just to take exactly always what people say. You can construct a better, testimonial if you have a bit of a script that you talk to your customer. You ask them certain questions like, how did this make you feel? What's better about your business since you started using us as a solution? When you ask those questions, you can get more information that you can use to craft a really good testimonial. I think that's a better way of doing it than just taking what someone says very, specifically, because they may not be speaking to the true benefit that you need people to understand.
Fantastic. And is there anything that should be left out? So don't put this on your landing page, wait for later.
Simple things conceptually, like I typically, a landing page is designed for a marketing campaign, right? It's the destination of whatever your advertising is. it's not your website. There's a kind of a distinction. Your website is for organic traffic. That's, for people searching for that. Landing pages are for campaigns, so they should only be created when you have a campaign. And as such, you need to focus people on that concept. So navigation is something you typically would not have on a landing page that's dedicated for a marketing campaign. Now, it's okay to have navigation if it's anchor navigation, so navigation that keeps you within the landing page, ideally with like a smooth scroll feature, so that when you click on the nav, it moves someone down the page, they can see it happening, and that's okay. And it's actually quite good, because then you can do some research, heat maps or whatever, to see which parts of the navigation people are clicking on, to see what they're really interested in. But it's important that these links do not take someone away from your page.
Oli works with something called conversion-centered design when designing high-converting landing pages. There are 7 principles you must take into consideration. Here's Oli's explanation of the super interesting framework.
That was specifically a kind of a framework for how to do effective landing pages. There are 7 principles. Attention is the first one, so that's all about focusing people's attention. 2 things. One is removing distractions, like I said, about don't have things that take people away, and using design principles to focus people on what you want them to be doing. Then there's context, that's delivering the first thing I mentioned, delivering the promise you've made and keeping that momentum and that scent all the way through the campaign. Then clarity, which is probably the most important part, right? If you can't be clear about your offer and if you can't communicate it really quickly, there's a good chance people will, go with someone else that can communicate better than you. Then congruence, which is making sure everything on your page is aligned with your campaign goal. Not like if you're giving away an ebook with a certain concept, certain content in it, having content on your landing page that speaks to something else about your company is incongruent with the goal of the campaign, which in this case would be to get someone to understand and want to download this ebook. So if you can distract people with content that's not relevant, so you don't want to do that. Then credibility, that's social proof. Closing, which is your call to action. And then continuance is the seventh principle, which is what you do after the conversion. Because a lot of the time you get a conversion, it's like, oh, thank you, off you go, right? It's just a thank you, but you have to ask for something. As soon as someone's converted, they're in a good mind, they're probably in a positive mindset for your brand or what you're offering them. So always ask for something right after that. So basically those 7 principles help you create landing pages that are very focused and targeted and designed specifically to convert. And conversion-centered design it's similar to user-centered design in that you want to create a great experience, but it's just a little bit different in that you're thinking beyond the experience and you're thinking from the business side of this is my goal, this is what I'm going to be measuring afterwards. So it's not just designing an experience that is easy and enjoyable, but it's something that's focused specifically on your business goals.
Cool, really interesting. Do you have any examples or anything specific people can do if they want to get better at doing this conversion-centered design? Yeah,
search for it. We have a microsite all about those 7 principles. There's also an ebook, but the site actually, that's a bit more interactive. So I think it's unbounce.com/conversion-centered-design. But if you just search for conversion-centered design, you'll probably see that.
Perfect, brilliant. So I'm thinking, what are your thoughts on pop-ups and exit intents and so forth? Because I'm thinking, is this good for the experience or does it drive conversion or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, hotly debated topic. It probably always will be. You know what? The first thing to think about with pop-ups is it's just technology. But technology is not a problem. It rarely ever is. The problem is marketers who are being irresponsible in their use of that technology, using negative psychological principles to coerce people into doing things or really getting in their way. So I think as long as you think about them from the right perspective, they can be great. But you should think this experience I'm creating needs to be additive. right? It needs to add some value to the experience, not detract from it. So, for example, if you have it on exit, like one of our highest converting ones was we had a full day event, digital agency day. And it was, like any event, it's time based, right? It's on this day, this time. So not everybody can attend. So when people were leaving, we'd say, oh, if you can't attend, give us your details and we'll send you all of the videos. Like there's like 8 of them or something. That's incredibly high value. It's why someone was there. But just because they couldn't attend, it's like, oh, wow, I get all these videos for free. That's awesome. That's additive. That's in line with what people were wanting when they came to see this experience. So that's the way you should be doing it. And, think about extreme value. Like, how can you possibly make this experience better? Because really, it is just technology. If, imagine you think about the scroll bar or think about any other element that exists inside your browser. You can really just think of it as another way of interacting with the page. It comes at a certain time in a certain way, like there's a certain trigger and targeting for why it appears and when, which is also what you need to do. You need to focus on giving the right experience to the right person at the right time. That's a bit of a cliche, that statement, but you shouldn't just blindly put these things in front of people. They need to be for a real reason, and you need to monitor them. That one that I was talking about, the videos, that converted 29%, which is absurdly high. If you are getting 0.5% conversion rate, you're not doing something right. You want to be 4%, 5% going up from there, especially in B2B. But if you see you have a terrible conversion rate, you have to consider what you're doing wrong, that you might actually be doing something negative for people's experience if it converts that low. That's the first thing. That's the first, immediately track how it's doing. And if you get a signal like it's converting horribly, you're probably just doing it wrong. And you should reconsider the experience and what you might want to ask. We had some customers of ours, they did an experiment where they had 4 different overlays, pop-ups, they did on their blog and 4 on their homepage. When they put the product-oriented ones on the blog, they failed horribly. When they put the newsletter, content-based one on the homepage, it performed terribly. You put the product one on the website, put the newsletter one where it's relevant, and the conversion rates went from like 0.5 up to 4 and 5. So just because it was semantically relevant to where people were and what they were doing, you shouldn't just, I've got a blog post, I'm going to hammer, throw pop-ups and stuff about your product. That's a bit too aggressive, because that's not why someone was there.
Okay, so let's flip that scenario over. Let's say you do experience really high conversions on your pop-ups. Does that necessarily mean that people are loving them, or are they just trying to escape from them? Well, here's Oli again.
Depends on how you're measuring the conversion, but yeah, no, it doesn't. It on the surface, it might appear that way, but it's not always going to be the case. Actually, one of the highest converting landing pages that we've seen in our database from our customers' pages was an unsubscribe. There's a newsletter unsubscribe, right? So that's going to convert a lot, but that's actually a negative sign. So, but that's why you need to measure the right things.
Do you have any good ideas as to what to measure?
Yeah, you need to be looking at lifetime value. Like, let's say this is for a product or sign up or an e-commerce transaction. You need to look at that customer or that customer cohort and see what they do in 4, 6, 8 weeks. If you're getting a lot of conversions, but then none of these people become customers, or they all churn really fast, then you were doing something wrong, and maybe they're converting because, I don't know, it was in the way and they want to get rid of it somehow, and you didn't have a proper mechanism for closing it. So look at the data. If you're collecting email addresses from your pop-up, look at the data. What is the quality of it? Are people putting a lot of fake email addresses in there, either just to get the thing you're offering or to get through this gate? Because if if the quality of them isn't good, then it's a false high conversion rate. And then that's kind of a concept called micrometrics, where you have to look at all the nuanced details of the conversion, not just like the conversion rate. It's what is the buildup of the data and the customer that you're creating using these experiences.
Brilliant. So I'm thinking, is there any way you can innovate these all well-to-known practices, such as pop-ups and the like? Have you seen any good ideas on B2Bs rethinking their ways of doing pop-ups?
Honestly, when I see pop-ups that are good, it's usually for some reason, it's usually a visual, it's usually either a design thing or a copy thing. If you can turn a pop-up into a delightful experience, then you're doing something, you're innovating, you're pushing beyond the typical. I've seen pop-ups that were the shape of a cloud, so transparent backgrounds, so that it's not just a square. That feels completely different. It's delightful by design, and you can get some hilarious copywriting on. So that's how people should be kind of pushing the use of that, and not doing the evil good cop, bad cop, where it's, do you want this thing? No, well, okay, I like killing kittens, and you have to click on this, you have to click on this thing that you fundamentally disagree with just to get past the experience. That's not okay. That's the shady side of marketing. And I like the idea of, and this is something I'm going to be working on in January. Let's say and this is very in line with e-commerce too. Let's say you have an entrance pop-up comes in, and here's your offer, and it's yes or no. Well, on entrance, and this is so common in e-commerce because you want to put an offer in front of people's faces immediately. I like the idea of having a yes, a no, but then a maybe later, because I might be interested in your offer. That might be really great, but it's a little too soon for me to be thinking about it. I still want to look around your site. I want to consider this stuff, but I do want to kind of remember and retain the information of that offer. So I think a concept of a maybe later, which transitions from a pop-up to like a sticky bar, some small bar that follows you around the site with a reminder, this is the offer we're presenting to you. So because if you click maybe later, you're showing interest, but you're also saying, leave me alone for a little bit. And that's a third type of interaction that you can really learn from. If people say no, you're learning something. They say yes, you learn maybe later, different type of intent. So I think this is how we can start innovating with how we present these types of experience and what we can learn about our customers by using them.
That's fantastic. Okay, so let's go back to the landing pages. So let's say I run a B2B and my landing page for my campaign isn't really converting at all. Where would you start to find out why if I ask for your help?
It has to start with research. So you can't just go, oh, it's not converting. Well, what's wrong with this page? You don't really know if that's the case. So my new framework is called data-driven design, and it's a collaborative, team-based way of using data. And I have this playbook where you look on, it's like a big matrix where you choose the element you're interested in, and it will suggest the types of data you should look at to understand how it's performing and how to optimize it. So, and you want the whole page to perform well, but sometimes you just need a starting place. So what I like to do is let's think about the form. Okay, what does the playbook say? Well, the form says you need to look at a session recording. You need to look at form analytics to see where people are abandoning, and you need to look at the quality of the lead data. So when you do these things, when you go to collect that data using Hotjar, for instance, when you look at that data, you are going to hopefully see some signals of why people aren't converting, but not just on that element, but you'll see other things around it. If you look at a session recording, if you're thinking about the form, you're going to pay attention to that, but you'll also see other things happening. It'll give you some insights as to where people might be going wrong. Usability testing can be handy. Actually, something that's great for, like I said before, clarity is probably the most important part. So running a 5-second test is really cool to see how good your communication is. 5-second test is you show a screenshot of your above the fold experience to someone, They see it for 5 seconds, then it disappears, and you ask a question, such as, what product does this company sell, or does this page feel trustworthy? When you get the answers to those things, then you can start to understand what type of problem you have. If only 8% of people know what you do, what your offer is, what your value proposition is in 5 seconds, you know you have a clarity problem, and you have to work on your copywriting and maybe the visual clarity as well. And you can do that kind of thing repeatedly until you see the numbers go up. It has to begin with research so you can actually witness where the pain might be.
Okay, so let's say they come to my site, they have a look around, and then they just leave again without doing anything. What then? What do I do?
In that case, if you're seeing that, then a little survey might be good, on exit, or just popping up after a few seconds saying, is there something, well, especially on exit, is there something you were looking for? What were you looking for today is a good question. And then, is there something you couldn't find, information you were looking for that you couldn't find? These types of questions might illuminate as to why people are leaving. Because sometimes, like, say you have a session recording and you just see people leave. Well, you don't know why, so you have to start asking people questions. And so let's say you have a pop-up, for instance, and you look at a recording of what people do. If they close it, what are they doing now? Are they closing it and then leaving immediately? Or are they closing it and continuing? Because again, that's a signal. If they're closing it and then immediately leaving, you know you're creating a bad experience, and then leaving because you did that incorrectly. So it has a lot of observation is really what you need to be doing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just sum up. What, in your views, are the key elements of a high converting or well-performing landing page?
Conceptually, clarity is almost everything. Be clear so people can understand in a few seconds what it is you have to offer. Specificity is also really important, like getting into the details so it's not vague. Having context, making sure that the page is highly relevant to where you drove people from, your ad, your email, your banner, whatever it is. And just remove those distractions, let people focus on what it is you have to offer. Don't let them go wandering off to your website, because then you're failing at your campaign if you give people an easy way out. So focused experience, and make it credible, and a simple way, actually, kind of coming right back to the start for social proof. Look on Twitter, see what people are talking about you. Because if you put social proof, actually, if you put tweets on your page about social brand commentary, that can be really powerful compared to just like a paragraph with a photo, because it's verifiable. Someone can go, oh, this is actually being spoken about. I can search Twitter. I can see this is actually true. So yeah, finding ways like that to add, just that validation that you are credible. And then having a call to action that explains what it is you're going to get when you click it. And just quick tip, don't be afraid to put your call to action below the fold. We found that when you put it at the bottom of the page, sometimes people it means they explore your page looking for how to take action. And that can mean they consume more content, they understand you a bit better, and they may end up becoming a better customer. So don't be afraid of that kind of myth that your call to action has to be above the fold.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Oli. Thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Alrighty, that was all from E-commerce Boost this time round. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to give us a rating in iTunes, and if you're feeling generous, maybe spend a moment on leaving a comment. Okay, cheers!
This session of E-commerce Boost was produced by Sleeknote. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on tactics and strategies that'll help boost your e-commerce.